more things here real quick. We're going to talk about one concept. So we've talked about zero pairs. We're going to talk about two more concepts. One concept is the absolute value. And the absolute value is the distance a number is from 0. And it is always, I'm going to write this note. It is always positive. So the symbols for absolute value are two vertical lines like that. So if I was to see the absolute value, so if I have a number that is 6, the absolute value of 6 is equal to 6. Because it's, how far is 6 from 0? It's 6 away, right? If I draw a number line, here's 0, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 spaces, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's how many spaces 0 is from 6. But if I wanted to know the absolute value of -7, I would go negative, you know what, I'm going to use a different color for this. We'll use hot pink. -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6, -7. That is where -7 goes. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 spaces away. And so the absolute value of -7 is also just 7. That's the absolute value. So we care about that a little bit. We're going to care about that a little bit as we start, as we go through this year. But that is one really important thing to think about, is the absolute value. So the reason that we're going to talk about that here is because one of the patterns that we see here, or hopefully that you'll notice, is that when I look at these problems, it's really just subtraction. When it's a positive and a negative, we're doing subtraction. We're really subtracting the absolute value, right? 7 minus 2 is 5. 5 minus 4 is 1. And then when we do, let's see, where's another example? Oh, these ones are when the signs are the same, it doesn't work that way. But when they're not the same, it works that way. So we're doing subtraction here. And what we're going to say is we subtract their absolute values. That's the pattern, right? When we are adding opposites, we really just subtract the absolute values, and then we keep the sign of the thing that there's more of. So down here, there's more negatives, and so my answer is going to be negative. Up here, there's more positives. My answer is going to be positive. That's just how that works. So that's the reason why I'm talking about absolute value, is because when adding opposites, when adding integers, if the signs have, if the signs for both numbers match, if they match, we are going to just add absolute value and keep sign. So that's the pattern here. So for instance, if I go back up to my balloons and I see that I'm adding 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, right? When I'm doing, I'm going to make these balloons. When I'm doing 3 plus 2, this is positive 3 plus positive 2. I'm going to add the absolute values of this. What's the absolute value of positive 3? 3. What's the absolute value of positive 2? 2. 3 plus 2 equals 5. So I know my number is going to be a 5, and then I'm going to keep the sign. These are positive, so my answer is going to be positive. If I'm adding negatives, I'm going to do negative 3 negative 3 plus negative 2. I'm going to add their absolute values. What is the absolute value of negative 3? 3. What is the absolute value of negative 2? 2. 3 plus 2 is 5. So again, I am adding their absolute value, but this time the numbers are negative, so I'm going to keep the negative sign. But if they're opposite, if I'm adding two things that are opposite, so if I have 1, 2, 3 balloons, and I have plus negative 2, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract their absolute values. Oops, you know what I need to do? Sorry, I'm going to write this down. Let's take notes on this first. So if the sign for both numbers match, just add the absolute values and keep the sign. That's what's going on here. But if both numbers have different signs, we can, so we are going to subtract the absolute values and we're going to keep the sign of larger numbers. Okay, so so we're going to do it this way. We're going to go, let's say we have 1, 2, 3 balloons, and then we have 2 sticks. What I have here, my original problem is 3 plus negative 2, and that is going to equal, so, let's make these balloons blue. So what we're going to do is we're going to cancel out, the 2 negatives are going to cancel out 2 of the positives, so I have 1 left. 3 minus 2 is equal to 1. 3 minus 2 is equal to 1. But then, is it a positive 1 or a negative 1? Well, there's more positives in the problem, so my answer has to be the positive. So I look at which number's bigger, the positive, and I didn't even show this on here. This is a positive 3. 3 is bigger than 2, and it's positive, so my answer will be positive. And then if I go the other way, let's say I do positive 2 plus negative 3. 1, 2, 3. This time, because there's more, when I tie them together and combine my 0 pairs, because there's more negatives, when I add these together, my 0 pairs are still going to cancel out, but the thing that I'm left with is the negative. So because there is 1 extra negative this time, I'm going to do my subtraction again. I'm just going to go 3 minus 2. Again, that's the absolute values for those. I'm subtracting the absolute values. And then I am going to say equals negative 1, because over here I have negative 1 left. In the first one I had positive 1, but in the second one I have negative 1. Okay, and then when it's subtraction, when we do it this way, the rules for subtraction just aren't this simple, but we can make them simple by reminding you that whenever you have any problem where you are saying any number, let's see, if we're saying any number, I'm going to use a plus the negative next number is going to be equal to the same thing as saying a minus the positive of whatever that number is. So for instance, 2 plus negative 3 is the same as 2 minus positive 3. And let's see, negative 10 plus negative 6 is the same as negative 10 minus positive 6. It doesn't really matter which one of these you use. And because you can switch them around, what I recommend you do is that you always go with the adding version. So if you are, always going to keep the first number the same, but what we recommend you do is whenever you're subtracting a positive, you change it to adding a negative. We can interchange these two things. And it also is true that if I have a plus a positive number, that is the same as doing a minus the negative number. So what we recommend you do is just always switch to the positive version. So you're always just going to flip these over until you're adding a number. Flip both signs over until you're adding a number. We call it keep, change, change. You keep the sign of the first number, change the next one, change the next one until it's an addition problem. And so for example, let's see, if I did negative 10 plus positive 6, that is the same as negative 10 minus negative 6. Both of those are going to equal negative 4. Both of these are going to equal negative 16. But it doesn't matter which one you do. So what I do is whenever I see minus negative, I change it to plus positive. Whenever I see minus positive, I change it to plus negative, because then I can draw these diagrams so easily, and it's so easy for me to think about it in my head. All right, that's our lesson. Okay, so we call this